So we're in Maseches Beitsa, Daf Lamed Hey, Amud Aleph, and we're still in the middle of a debate between Mar Zutra Brei de Rav Nachman and someone we're calling the Makshan, who asked a question on Mar Zutra Brei de Rav Nachman, that our Mishnah that says if you had fruit on the roof, according to the way Rashi learns our Mishnah, and you designated you want to eat from it the next day, and the diuk is that if it wasn't Shemitah, you'd be Chayiv and Meiser, it would be Chayiv and Meiser. And the question is why? What factor would make it Chayiv and Meiser just because you talked about eating it the next day? Mar Zutra Brei de Rav Nachman says it's the fact that you want to eat it on Shabbos, so you're designating it for Shabbos. Shabbos has a koach of being kovea from Meiser, and here we'd say it's working its magic. Shabbos is just a desire, the designation to eat this on Shabbos is making you Chayiv and Meiser. Whereas the Makshan, the person asking on Mar Zutra, is saying no, it's the Dibur. Just the very fact that he's declaring that he wants to eat it as a Suda, that's enough to make it a permanent meal, as it were, and that permanence makes it Chayiv and Meiser. Not the fact that it's Shabbos, but the fact that it's a Dibur. And we asked on that Makshan, how can you say that Rabbi Eliezer, as part of our mission, would hold of that kind of thing, that a Dibur can make it Chayiv and Meiser? But we see Rabbi Eliezer says even when you take fruit from a container and put it on your plate, it doesn't always become Chayiv and Meiser. So Kal V'chomer, if you just said a Dibur about eating it, it shouldn't be Chayiv and Meiser. So the Makshan says, but remember, Rabbi Eliezer makes a distinction between if you could put it back in the container, you can't put it back in the container. If you could put it back in the container, you're right, it's not permanent since you can put it back in the container, so it's not Chayiv and Meiser. But if you can't put it back in the container, then it's permanently on your plate, so to speak, because you can't put it back, so then that would make it Chayiv and Meiser. So the Makshan says that's what our Mishnah must be talking about, where the fruit was tahor, and the man who wanted to take the fruit was tamei, and therefore fits into the category that Rabbi Eliezer would say is Chayiv and Meiser because you can't put it back. When you do take it, you can't put it back. So therefore, that kind of designation will make it Chayiv and Meiser. Now the Gemora is going to say Bahalo, so we're approximately 12 lines down. First word of the line is Dilo Matzi Maharle, which is the very end of the answer of the Makshan. And now the Gemora is turning around again and asking on him another question to try to deflect his approach. Who's going to read that? Bahalo. Gemora.
Let's see.
You all have the place?
Yeah.
Truly you have the place? You see it?
12 lines on the bottom, from the top.
First word of the line. First word of the line is the low. Muchzarim. Yeah.
It's not that stating.
They are. When you say something with the word omed, you mean it's in a permanent situation of that nature. So muchzar means it's been returned. Right? It's the passive form of machzir, which means to return something. So muchzar means something was already returned. Omdi means it's in that situation permanently. Use those two verbs together. A verb plus the word omed or omdim, it's like you're saying it's permanently in that situation. So it's like saying it's already permanently in a situation of being what? Muchzar.
Already permanently returned.
It's like returned already. You say he can't return it because he's tamei and the fruit's tahor, but that's not true. It's all up on the roof, and he hasn't yet even picked it up. All he's done is made a dibur, a hazmana. Right? He comes Erev Shabbos, makes a dibur about it, and he wants to come the next day and eat it. He hasn't picked it up yet. So it's already on the roof where all the rest of the fruit is. That's like being in the jar. In the case where the mice, the the Mishnah that we looked at in Maestros, where all the zaytim were in the all the olives were in the jar, and we talked about you took it out and you want to put it back, but we're saying here he never really picked it up Erev Shabbos. He just talked about it. So therefore, you're telling me he can't put it back. What do you mean? It's already been put back. That means it's already in a situation where it's with the original group that it started with. Right? It's not like the Mishnah where Rabbi Lezer said, you put a whole bunch on your plate, now could you put it back? Well, it depends. If you're tummy and the other stuff's not. But here, he's just referring to fruit on a roof. Right? You come along and you talk about that fruit, doesn't matter how tummy you are, you didn't make it tummy. Right? And you say, well, now, could you put it back? No, you can't put it back because you're tummy. What do you mean? I didn't touch it. So it's already back in the group. It's not. I never even picked it up. That you'll have to talk about putting it back. It's already put back. It's already in its original group. So therefore, the whole idea that if I take something and I can't put it back, it becomes permanently by me and it becomes chayv and meiser. That's not going to apply over here, because he never actually picks it up and to the point where you say, oh, you're holding tamei fruit, you can't put it back, it's chayv and meiser. There's never going to be a situation like that. All you did was point to it and say, I want to eat from here, and now, even if you're tamei, it doesn't become tamei, right? It's not like I can't put it back. It's already sitting where it originally started. It doesn't need to be put back, right? So I didn't make it tamei, A. B, it never left the group that you have to talk about, can you put it back? It's already back in the group. It was up there with 100 other raisins, and then you talked about it. Don't compare it to the zaytim that Rabbi Eliezer said you can't put back in the jar, because those, first of all, you picked them up already, and they're separate from the jar, and now the question is, can you put it back, can you not put it back? If you can't put it back, it's permanently by you, it's chayv and meiser. Here, he never picked it up. He's just referring to those raisins that he wants to eat tomorrow. So, that kind of a dibur, what are you going to compare it to? Where he can't put it back? It's already back. It's already in the group. Tomorrow he wants to come and pick it up, but if you tell him he can't, then he won't. Right? So it's not a matter of it's permanently by you, it's chayv and meiser. It's not permanently by him. It's still on the roof. So therefore, the Gemora is saying to the Makshan here, the Gemora is saying to Mr. Makshan, how can you claim that our Mishnah would still be the Dibur? And the reason why it would fit into Rabbi Eliezer in the Mishnah in Maestros is because just like over there, if he's Tamei and the fruit is Tahor, it makes it Chayv and Meiser. But it's not true. That won't apply to our case. So that's how the Gemora goes. Let's see the Rashi on that. So perhaps we should start with Mishanina. We talked about this yesterday. The Rashi adds the word Mishanina. Remember that Rashi we looked at yesterday? We made a whole big thing about the word Mishanina. And then the next Rashi starts with the word Parchinan, the stage directions that Rashi adds here.
Mishanina, right?
Which means
The answer.
the Gemara's answering. And in this case, the answer means it's the Makshan answering those who were attacking him. Remember at the beginning of the page, Rashi says we were attacking him and telling him, you can't say it's just the Dibur. It's impossible. It doesn't fit into Rabbi Eliezer. Now he's trying to answer that by saying what?
To cover
Misnisi Nami, our Mishnah also is a case that what?
To cover the Dibure.
He's still sticking by his answer. Yes, it's still the reason why it's Chayv Meiser in our Mishnah, because his Dibur, the mere mention that he wants to eat it, he wants to eat this fruit for his Suda, that's what's making it Chayv Meiser. But it's only because it's a case that what?
Muksa Taha.
It's talking in a case of Muksa Tahor. That the muksa that's on the roof, i.e. the fruit that he's going to want to eat, that he's doing hazmana on, that's tahor fruit. And like in our Mishnah in Maestros, we'll say the gavra
Tamei.
is tamei. That's what we're askinan. That's what we're dealing with. And therefore it's a case, to lo matzi,
Mahada Moisra.
you cannot put the extra back once you take it. Therefore, if there's like a formula that Rabbi Eliezer says that once you can't put it back, it's chayv and meiser, that would explain why in our Mishnah it's chayv and meiser. Because he made a dibur and he can't put it back, so therefore that's why it's chayv and meiser. You can still say it's the dibur that's doing it. And we still fit into Rabbi Eliezer's shita in meisrus. But the Gemora says that's not really going to hold water. Why? Mishaninan. I'm sorry. Parchinan, the Gemora says, Rashi says, we're asking another question on him now.
Is not already being returned.
They're like in a permanent state of being returned, meaning the whole idea of returning is that once you take it, you can't put it back, or you can put it back. Well, it's already back in its group. It's on the roof. I only talked about taking it tomorrow, but I never took it. So Rashi says the pshat and the kasha is
it's not that
he never actually took them, he never picked them up. He just went up to the roof and either pointed like the Rabbanim or just referred to it in his dibur what he wanted to eat the next day, according to Rabbi Eliezer. But he never actually took them. He rather only did a dibur ba'alma. He spoke about taking them. And that's going to make a big difference. Why?
Kevin, if he not them, when you took them,
I think he's saying, like, in a case where you do take them, since there is since Rabbi Eliezer it's still true what he said in Maestros, that if you end up taking fruit, his shita is that even if you do take the fruit, but it's still efshar b'chazara, that's what we're saying. Since there is a shita of Rabbi Eliezer that still exists, that if you take fruit and can put it back, that is what. Mahanyalei chazara. Since in a case where you actually did take them, but you could put them back, that helps you. The fact that you could put it back helps you to say it's not chayiv and meiser. So if I actually took it, but I could put it back, that fact makes it not chayiv and meiser. So since there is a classic case of Rebbe Eliezer like that, where you take it, but you could put it back, and that makes it patur for meiser. So in our case also. Lo mak was the end of the sentence. It's since when you take it and you could put it back lo makva, it doesn't become kavua for meiser. So therefore, in our case, even if it's not possible to put it back, because he is tamei, so if he would take it, he would be usher to put it back. But nami also it will help because lo natlan. He never took it in our case. He actually never took it. If he took it and couldn't put it back, you'd be right. But in our case, it's like the case where he did take it and could put it back. Because in our case, he actually never took it. Lo natzlan. He only made a dibur, right? So if he actually took it, then you have to decide, can he put it back or not? And it will depend on whether he could put it back, whether it's chayiv and meiser. But since there's a shita that Rebbe Eliezer says if you could put it back, it's patur. So in our case, where he never took it, it's like it's already back in its place. Ein lecha chazara kazu. There's no greater returning than our case. Our case is the best case scenario of returning. Right? It's better than you took it and put it back and never left.
It's already there.
It's already there. So if being put back, you say it never became chayiv and meiser, even though it left and went onto your plate and then went back. You're saying, but even though it left and went on your plate, it's still not chayiv and meiser because it went back. So kal v'chomer, if it never left, it shouldn't be chayiv and meiser, because that's the best kind of chazara there could be, where it's never left. The filu shakli. We never even took it. Mishkal shakal here means like the Aramaic for taking. Just a minute.
already there, so you don't have to.
Right? So if you think of it the other way, I think it helps to think of it the other way around, really. Because the whole idea of taking it and not being able to put it back means it's part of your permanent meal, right? That's what makes it a permanent meal. It's koveya, meaning it's permanently by you to eat. That's what makes it chayv meiser, because now it's permanently by you. But in our case, that's what we're saying. It's permanently not with you. It's on the roof. So the whole idea that if you take it, maybe it becomes chayv meiser because you can't put it back. But here you didn't even take it, so it doesn't even start to be in the same category as the case where Rabbi Eliezer says chayv meiser. So kal v'chomer, it should be chayv meiser in our case. That's what the Gemora is answering the Nafshi. So basically, if we had to score the debate, who would win at this point? He's a Tsama, he's not in the debate. We have the Makshan versus Rabbi Marzutra Breda Rav Nachman.
What is the Makshan?
Huh?
The Makshan?
Let's go through the steps. At the top of the page, we said to the Makshan, Mi Matzis, right? Read that Rashi again.
Mi Matzis, are able to say even a Dibur works?
And then we brought that whole thing with Rabbi Eliezer.
Even a Meiser, if the Meiser took him and then it's a back, it doesn't
No,
work.
that ended right before Misnisi Nami.
Yeah.
How do I know? What Rashi tells me, Misnisi Nami is the Gemora's answer, which means it's the Makshan's answer.
Yeah.
He's trying to say our Mishnah would be chayv meiser with just a dibur because the guy is tamei.
Yes.
That'd be like Rabbi Lezer's case where the guy's tamei and the fruit is tahor.
Since he can't take it back, he's chayv meiser.
Right. To which the Gemora says no. On the roof, it's muchzar va'omen.
It's already there, isn't that anything?
So it's as good as the case, but better than the case where Rabbi Lezer said if you can return it, it's pater. Here it's not even a case where you have to return it; it's already returned.
But in our some person in our Mishnah it says a man stands next to his muktzah during the shmita take it, but during the rest of the time, it's his chayv mitzvah and his chayv meiser. We're saying the opposite now.
No, we're not. Marzutra, the son of Rav Nachman, is saying, you know why it's chayv meiser? Because of Shabbos.
So we're talking.
Don't tell me it's a dibur.
Okay.
And try to compare it to the case where Rabbi Eliezer says it would work if you took it out and could put it in and you can't put it back. That won't explain it. And even if you try to say it's like that case, because the guy's tamei and the fruit is tahor, but our case would still be like a case where it was returned. Rabbi Eliezer holds that if it can be returned, then the very fact that you allocated it for your meal doesn't make it chayv meiser. Even if you took it for your meal, but you could put it back, not chayv meiser. Kal v'chomer, if you just talked about taking it.
Why in our Mishnah does it say that the man who stands next to his muktzah? Right?
In a regular year, it would be chayv meiser. You know why? Because of Shabbos. And don't try to tell me it's because of dibur.
Right.
It's a bunch of baloney.
Yep.
That's what it says in the Fairman Gemora, not in the Shabbos. Okay? So again, the debate went on and on and on, but in the end of the day, who wins the debate?
Marzutra.
Marzutra Breda Rav Nachman. Because even if you try to go on and on about it being the dibur, it doesn't help you in the end. Because certainly in Rabbi Eliezer, it has to be a case where you couldn't return it to be chayv meiser. In this case, it's already back. It's sitting there in the pile. You never took it. So kal v'chomer, if you take it out and could put it back, it's pater meiser. Kal v'chomer, if it never was taken at all. basically. So how come, like Shabbatai, aptly, was Medayik, it is Chayv and Meiser on the regular year? Shabbos. So we're back to saying that Mar Zutra, Breda Rav Nachman is right. He could bring a proof to his father, who answered Rava that Shabbos does have a koach to be kover for Meiser, even a product that was not Re'iyas Panei Abayis, and even a product that wasn't Nigmar Malacha. So, just like Rav Nachman said, yes, I have a Kabbalah that's true, that Shabbos has that koach to be kover for Meiser. Mar Zutra Breda Rav Nachman won the battle to say that he thinks that our Mishnah could have been a proof for that. His father didn't choose to bring it from our Mishnah, so it would be a bit of a question. Why didn't your old dad bring it from our Mishnah if it really is true that it could have been used as a proof? But for whatever reason, maybe because Rav Nachman knew that someone could have put up a big fight, like Mr. Maksham put up a big fight. But in the meantime, at this point, I would say Mar Zutra Breda Rav Nachman won the battle. Maybe not the war, but the battle. Okay. Well, we'll see in a minute. That was only round one. Round two, someone else is going to try to stick his head up and argue again. So, right. So now a new man is stepping into the fray of Shimi Bar Ashi, which in a way he's like a new Makshan. The other one didn't have a name. Now we're giving him a name, Rav Shimi Bar Ashi. He's going to say, don't give up yet. You know what that means?
You already said?
You were saying from him, means you were saying he should be the one to prove you're wrong, right? Or let's just put it this way: he's there in the mix, right? He's in the mix, and that's why you were trying to use him as a proof that Dibur doesn't work, right? And like at the top it says you're trying to say Dibur works. I'll show you Dibur doesn't work from Rabbi Eliezer because he's part of the Mishnah, right? But he's saying you tried to use Rabbi Eliezer as your proof. Ka'amras, you used him as your proof. But you can't. Let's remember that what? L'taimei. Rabbi Eliezer has a unique shita.
It's a lesser shita?
What?
It's a lesser?
No. It means he's going according to his reasoning, which is like saying he has a unique shita in life, and everything he says is colored by that shita. So we can't compare it to the Rabbanan, let's say, who don't think that way. Because let's not forget, whatever we say in Rabbi Eliezer, we're going to have to fit it into the Rabbanan as well. Just like we said, there's two people in our Mishnah, the Chachamim and Rabbi Eliezer. And whatever you say has to fit into Rabbi Eliezer, well, just in the same way, you have to be aware that the Rabbanan are there in our Mishnah. And if you're saying, let's put it this way, you're saying that Shabbos made it Kovea for Meiser, well, I'll prove to you that the only one who might be able to say that is Rabbi Eliezer, but the Rabbanan would not want to agree to that. Because they have to also stack, it also has to stack up to what they hold in life to be true. So just like you have to have Rabbi Eliezer matching what he holds elsewhere, you also have the Rabbanan matching what they hold elsewhere. So however you're going to explain our Mishnah in Beitsa, it has to be a sufficient way of explaining Rabbi Eliezer and the Rabbanan. And the way you're explaining it doesn't quite explain the Rabbanan. Why? Because I could explain that Rabbi Eliezer would say it's Kovea for Meiser with just Shabbos, let's say. You know why? Because he would go according to his reasoning. His reasoning elsewhere. Which says what? Truma Kava.
The truma is
could be koveya, could make something a permanent, could give, let's say, food a permanence. Let's use that terminology. It seems to be an easier way to refer to it in English. This factor gives it a certain permanence which makes it chayiv and meiser. So we call that, it's koveya for meiser. Okay? That means, let's say I have a pile of food, right? We said, at this point, it's just, let's say, a pile of food out in the field. Let's say I haven't brought it into the house. That it's not chayiv and meiser yet. Right? Because it's just out in the field. We haven't brought it even home, let alone grind it up or whatever else you're going to do to make it into a proper finished product. So at that point it's patur for meiser. But Rabbi Eliezer said if you take truma from that pile, which you didn't have to, but you decided to, you saw your Cohen friend walking along the street, you say, Harry, come here, I have something for you. You scoop up a little bit of the wheat or whatever, you put in a little baggie, you say, here, go home, make a nice cake for your wife. Here's some nice truma. So, that act of taking truma from that pile of grain was koveya, influenced the kavius, the permanence of all the rest of the fruit now. That's his shita. That's the chiddushik shita of Rabbi Eliezer. If you just take truma from a pile of fruit or vegetables, the very fact that you took truma, let's say, shows that you look at this as like a permanent thing. Because why did you take truma from it? That kind of gives it a sense of permanence. So that makes it koveya for meiser as well.
If someone took truma, it's koveya for meiser as well.
That's right. Even though they're two separate departments, as it were.
Do you take meiser from truma as well?
No. Truma goes to a Kohen.
He doesn't take.
He doesn't have to take meiser from it. But what does happen, that's a little bit of what you're saying, is when you give meiser to a Levi, he has to give truma as well. And that has to be a tenth of whatever you gave him. So it's called meiser mina meiser, which is 100th. That's why if you ever looked at the nusach of the speech you make when you take trums and meisers, which is good to look at the whole, even if it's in English, try to find a speech that it's good to look at it and understand the different parts of what happens when a person takes trums and meisers, even though you may not practically want to do it yourself. But what you talk about is more than 1/100th. Because you're taking off 1/100th will be the trumas meiser. This is a tenth of a tenth. And the more than 1/100th is your truma to the Kohen. So if you take off more than 1/100th of this fruit, you have now taken off the truma and the trumas meiser. Both trumas, in other words. Which is usher to eat, and chayiv misvi de shamayim, I think, and whatever, big isser. And anything that's left is just meiser. And that you end up eating yourself, for whatever reasons. Not the same as isser being true. Right, so then you have to also you have to try to take out the meiser. But the point is, the more, that we normally talk about more than 1/100th. You'll find that referred to a number of times in the Nusach. Because that more than 1/100th is, the 100th is the Trumas Meiser, and the more than 1/100th is your own Truma that you're giving.
Well, if you have taken off Truma, you take you hold if you take off Truma, you have to take Meiser as well?
That's what you say. Now you put yourself in a position where even though normally that fruit has not yet reached a stage where it will be Chayiv and Meiser, but after you took Truma from it, it does make it Chayiv and Meiser. So that whole question of, we keep asking ourselves, at what point does something become chayiv and meiser? And we have all sorts of traditional answers to that question. It has to come into the house, it has to be finished product. We've already seen you can bypass some of those, right? We said, for example, if it's Shabbos, you bypass part of it, etc. That according to everyone, we bypass Riyas Pnei Abayis, and where the question is, can you bypass the Nigmar Malacha? The fact that it's not a finished product. So he has a shita sort of parallel to that. If you actually took truma from this pile, that itself made the rest kavua for Meiser. It's like you're making a declaration. This food is permanently binding, or something along those lines. So he wants to say the following. So Rav Shimi Bar Ashi is using that fact kind of against Rabbi Eliezer. He holds that, okay, and now look what he says. That's fact number 1. Once you do that, and he wants to say, Kol Shekain Shabbos. Kol Shekain, if Truma can be koveh for Meiser, Shabbos can be koveh for Meiser. He's saying it's a Kal V'chomer. I'll have to see in Rashi what the score of that is, but basically it's like saying, if I designated something for Truma, and that's enough to make it permanent, or chashuv enough to be permanent, then being designated for Shabbos certainly makes it chashuv. It's even more so. Maybe the Kal V'chomer is, because when you take Trumas or Meiser, so you haven't done anything, let's say there were 100 apples, so I took off 2 apples, let's say, for Truma, whatever, right? Truma should be ideally 1/50th. Right, in the scenario that I said, where we say 1/100th, we make it 1 apple is the Truma. No, actually, a little bit more than an apple is a Truma. The apple itself is Trumas Meiser. But theoretically, if you had the proper time and period that you gave Trumas and Meisers, you should, the Gemora says, ideally give 1/50th for Truma. That's an average amount that you would be respected for giving. You want to be extra generous, you're supposed to give 1/40th, extra cheap, 1/60th, but 1/50th is, so you give 2 apples to be Truma, right? So I had a pile of 100 apples, now what do I have? I gave Truma to the Kohen. How many did I give? 2. So how many's left? 98. But did I really do anything to those 98?
No.
Yes and no. In other words, till now it was Tevel. Now I fixed it up regarding Truma. There's no problem of Tevel in the rest of the apples as far as Truma is concerned. There's only Tevel of Meiser. There's no Tevel of Truma in there. It's like I took them and I fixed them up, but only because, I did something outside of them to fix them up, make them not Tevel anymore. Okay? But I did really do something to them? Not so much. But when I say I want to use this for Shabbos, I'm doing something to them. Right? If I point to 98 apples and I say, I want to use these apples for Shabbos, that's even better, right? Now I've not just taken off the halacha of Tevel from them, I've positively allocated them for my Shabbos Suda. It's an even better act, as it were, to those apples. Those 98 apples were given a proper kavod, as it were. I'm dedicating these 98 to my Shabbos Suda. That's much more significant than just saying I took off 2 apples from the 100 and it ended up vicariously fixing all the 98 that they're no longer Tevel for Truma. It's a more direct action, it's a positive action in a way, it's almost giving a kavod rather than just sort of removing an impediment. Maybe that's his Kal V'chomer. Just, imagining in my mind that maybe that's part of his Kal V'chomer. But whatever. So that's what Rav Shimi Bar Ashi wants to say. Rabbi Eliezer, who looks at life that way, that when you take off Truma, you've given chashivas to all the rest of the fruit, and you made a kavua for Meiser, right? Because now, if you think about it, it makes a bit of sense the way we're saying it. When you take off the 2, you're fixing up all the rest on some level, right? You take off the din of Tevel, in a sense you're fixing all of them up on one level, right? They still need other things, like Meiser taken, etc., but you basically fix them up.
No one can eat it. Even the Kohen can't eat it without Truma being okay.
Okay, but I still have brought it one step closer. It's like I've done, let's say you have to do 4 tikkunim. I've done one of the 4 tikkunim. I've shown that this is food I want to eat. Maybe that's the pshat. All of these cases that we're always talking about, I showed I want to eat it. I showed I want to eat it for Shabbos, or I showed I want to do something to it. It's giving it a certain permanence that it wouldn't have necessarily. Let's say I bring it into my barn as a finished product. That's like the ultimate form of permanence, right? That's why it's Chayiv and Meiser. But all these other cases, which are like parallel forms of the same thing, are basically doing that same idea, making it part of my Achila.
Can you take Meiser before Truma is taken?
The truth of the matter is, it's Aser.
Yeah.
No, Truma you said, or Meiser?
No, can you take Meiser
Before
you take Truma?
So officially it's Aser, if I remember correctly. It's a good question. Because it is a Seder you're supposed to follow, but if you do it out of order, I think the Gemora says there's a reason why it's Aser to do, because I think you actually mess things up. But
you just read it, right? You see there's someone where Truma wasn't taken, and he eats it accidentally. If someone comes and takes Truma from it, he's tikkun, he's made tikkun. You can do it late.
We read it when?
Yeah, we should do. I think it's the bottom line here. Yeah, Shu'im Aveh.
No, that means on Shabbos he actually did take Meiser.
Right.
He didn't do it out of order. He did everything he's supposed to do, but he did it on Shabbos.
Is that true? Or was that Meiser?
And whatever he's supposed to take, he took. That's the point.
Okay.
He went ahead and did it on Shabbos. Now you have to know, he might have. You see, look at it this way. When Shabbos came in, it was usher to eat this food.
Yeah.
And the normal sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, who holds a muksa, is that if when Shabbos comes in, something is not usable, even if in the middle of Shabbos something happens to make it usable, you can't. It's already been sort of blacklisted for Shabbos. Like Moser Shemen. What was the case of Moser Shemen? When Shabbos came in, you can't take this oil because it's like doing kibui on the nair. So then later, when the flame goes out, if there's some shemen left over, now there's no isser anymore of taking the shemen. So let me take the shemen. Now it's usable. No, when Shabbos came in, it was usser. It's usser for the whole of Shabbos. So you might have thought the same thing about tevel. If when Shabbos came in and you asked the Rav, "Can I eat this fruit?" you say, "Chas v'sholom, it's tevel." So I would think that if later on during Shabbos something happened to make it mutter, which happens to be someone came and took all the Trumas and Meisers he's supposed to take on it, and now it's edible, but I would think it doesn't matter. It's like the Moser Shemen. Who cares that now it's edible or usable? And when Shabbos came in, it wasn't. So I would think it's blacklisted for all of Shabbos, just like the rest of the muksa items that Rabbi Yehuda is against. On that we're saying no. The Chiddush, that since it's only Nisr D'Rabbanan, like Rashi said before, Daf Chavav or whatever, therefore we look at it as different than regular things. That when Shabbos came in, it wasn't truly Asr to the extent that would make it Asr in the middle of Shabbos. Now it's no longer Muksa. Now once you make it edible, you are allowed to eat it because it's not Muksa. So that was the Chiddush there, not the order. But you're asking a good question. There is a problem with taking Trums and Meisters out of order. At some point, I think the Gemora says you kind of ripped off the Kohen. It could be that.
We discussed this in the first grade, no?
Huh?
We
might have. It comes up every so often that if there's an order and you break the order, sometimes you end up being putter from a certain thing, which ends up ripping off the Kohen, but it still worked, kind of like B'diavad. But let's not think about that right now. Okay, right now we're talking about a case where there was a pile, it needed all the things taken. Truma, Meiser, and Trumas Meiser, and Meiser Sheni even, or whatever. But at this point that he took off Truma, one thing he fixed up. So in one respect, it's no longer Tevel. It's called not Tevel for the Truma, but it is Tevel for the other things. But that doesn't matter. It's like peeling off one layer that was Asr. So he basically now did a tikkun of some proportion of tikkun to the other fruit. So by taking off the two, he kind of made a declaration about the other 98 that he wants to eat from it. It's kind of like an indirect thing. I want to eat from this because I've now fixed it up. So maybe that's Rav Shimi's Kal V'chomer. That if I've done an indirect thing to fix up the fruit somewhat, not totally, but somewhat, and that's enough to make it Chayiv Meiser because that shows that I really want to eat from this, and therefore it gives it a certain permanence. So Kal V'chomer, that if I declared you take regular fruit, and you declare you want to use it for Shabbos, you've dedicated to your Shabbos Suda, that's much greater impact on that fruit than the indirect impact of taking Truma. That's what I think he's saying. So he makes his Kal V'chomer. Now that's just one step in his kasha, right? He's asking a multi-level kasha. We see Rabbi Eliezer holds about Truma. If you take Truma, that makes it Chayav Meiser. He wants to add to that if Kol Shekain, that if you designated something for Shabbos, that would become Chayav Meiser. And then he's going to turn around and say, but let's not forget that even if Rabbi Eliezer holds that way, but the Rabbanan who argue with him would argue as well on the other fact. I mean, it's not an airtight argument. The truth is, because if he's admitting that it's a Kol Shekain Shabbos, he's admitting Shabbos is stronger than Truma. Shabbos could make a stronger reason than Truma. But he's saying if the Rabbanan argue on the Truma, likely they'll argue as well on the Shabbos. So therefore, even if you'll tell me that in Rabbi Eliezer it's the Shabbos that's doing it, but that's not going to help because it wouldn't explain why the Rabbanan would say it's Chayav Meiser. That's what he's coming around the back door, almost, to attack Mar Zutra Breda Rav Nachman, who's trying to say that it's the Shabbos aspect, which everyone would agree is making a Chayav Meiser, even though no Nigmar Malacha. But he's saying, look, you can say that in Rabbi Eliezer, but don't forget the Rabbanan argue on Rabbi Eliezer. So there are Rabbanan who also are in this Mishnah. They wouldn't agree with what you're saying. They would disagree with Rabbi Eliezer on that point, and therefore you have to find another reason why it's Chayav Meiser in our Mishnah. And likely that's going to be the Dibur. Right, we'll be back to that Dibur aspect again.
The rabbis argue with the Eliezer from the point of view that he's from here on. They say, no, you've got to
not that Rabbanan. There's another Rabbanan here. Here we're about to read a Mishnah that backs up what we just said. That Rabbi Eliezer says Truma is Koveya for Meiser, but there's Rabbanan who argue with that.
That's not the Mishnah.
No, but we want to say, just like the Rabbanan there argue with Rabbi Eliezer, there's Rabbanan by us as well who are going to argue the same thing. So you can't use the same explanation that you want to use because it will actually line up with Rabbi Eliezer's point of view, but it won't line up with the Rabbanan's point of view, which we see over there in Meiser. Now we're going to learn another Mishnah in Meiser, right? We're going to have, I think, our 4th or 5th Mishnah already. So if you ever want to learn Maseches Meiseris, you will already have a few Mishnahs under your belt over here. Okay, so now let's see that Mishnah. You have it, Sruli, Desnan.
Yep.
Who's reading the Gemora? Shabbatai, you want to read the Gemora?
Desnan Pirot, Shetarman, Shetarman. So fruit that
he took Meiser on them. Oh, sorry, Truma on them.
He's got Truma. Ad Shalo, Nigmar Malachtan. But the work is not finished. Unfinished fruit.
What?
Unfinished fruit.
So he's basically saying he took Truma from them whilst they are still in the stage before their malacha was finished, before they were finished product.
Drying raisins.
Right, drying raisins would be a case, or any other fruit that needs finishing touches to it, and therefore he went ahead sort of earlier than he had to and did Truma. Alright.
He doesn't allow eating from him casually
as a snack even, which means it's really Chayav and Meiser. Once it's Chayav and Meiser, then you can't just eat a snack. If it's not really Chayav and Meiser, then you can eat a snack, like we've been saying. Once it's Chayav and Meiser, you can't eat a snack anymore. You have to actually take the Meiser.
On Shabbos?
No, anytime. You take fruit that's Chayav and Meiser, you have to take Meiser before you can eat it.
Yeah.
But if it's not yet Chayav and Meiser, then we let you eat it from it awry. That's what we keep talking about. This thing made it Kavua for Meiser. This thing made it Kavua. Because Kavua, once you make something Kavua, it's Chayav automatically. So you have to talk about something that's not yet Chayav, then you could still eat it awry. But if it is chayiv, then that's it. You have to take meiser. There's no getting around it because I'm only eating a snack. Right? Can you imagine going into a Chiloni's house who doesn't take trums and meisers, and you say to your mom, I'm going to eat this just because it's a snack. I'm just taking one grape. What do you think your mother would do? She'd smack you and tell you, forget that. You can't eat it. It's tevel. Well, you can't eat it. Just having a snack is in the heter.
So when you're coming back to the olive story, if he takes the olives out, puts 10 in front of him, and he can return them,
then they're not yet chayiv.
And they're not chayiv, and that's why he can eat them as a snack.
Right.
Okay.
But, so that's just because he took truma. That's the only thing he did that makes them chayiv a meiser. In fact, he took truma from this pile. So that's what we're showing them. Rabbi Eliezer's shita is that if you actually go ahead and take truma from a pile of fruit, you just ended up making that whole pile kavua and chayiv and meiser. That's fine. And Kol Shekin Shabbos would have that same effect. But the Gemora is saying, but look, Chachamim,
Material. They don't
Material. That means the Chachamim hold that what? Taking truma from a pile does not make it chayiv and meiser.
Oh, it's not that they can't eat it.
You're allowed to eat the rest. It's not yet chayiv and meiser. Even though I took truma, there's 98 apples left. You can take a snack from that pile of 98 because it's not chayiv and truma yet. They're matter you to take a snack.
So how do you read the sentence? Rabbi Eliezer Sula Chol Milan.
Marai.
Marai.
You can't eat a snack.
Right.
From material, you could eat a snack.
Uh-huh.
And I would add, the Rabbi Eliezer says you can't eat a snack because they're already chayiv and meiser. There's no snacks from it's chayiv. But the Chamim are matter you eat a snack because it's not yet chayiv and meiser. I took truma. It doesn't matter. That doesn't make it chayiv and meiser.
So they're saying truma is not.
It's not koveh.
Uh-huh.
Not koveh.
This is all about Nafshi, right?
It's a new makshim. It's Rabbi Shimon Bar Ashi. He's trying to support what the original makshim was trying to attack Rabbi Mar Zutra Breda Rav Nachman. He's also trying to attack him, but from a completely different angle now. Okay, you get it? So that already is a new way of attacking Mar Zutra Breda Rav Nachman. Because yes, Rabbi Eliezer would say Shabbos could be koveh, because he also holds Truma could be koveh. But the Chamim will argue and say Truma can't be koveh, so they're likely to argue as well on the fact that Shabbos is koveh.
Why would they say that Truma is not koveh?
Because what did you do? I didn't do. I just took 2 and I gave it to my Kohen friend who was walking by. I didn't do anything to these 98. These 98 are still unfinished stuff out in the field. What made them chayiv all of a sudden?
It's not like truma is a stamp of approval for that fruit. You cannot eat them without taking truma. If you take truma, you can now eat them, right?
You can eat them as far as truma is concerned.
Yeah, it's true.
But you haven't done anything to finish them off, to bring them into the house. And they're still in their state of being an unfinished product out in the field, according to the Chamim. Yes, you fix them up a touch, but that's not enough. You know, they need to be a truly finished product brought into the house to be chayiv and meiser. You can do other things maybe to approximate them, but that's the real rule. The real rule is to be chayiv and meiser. They have to reach a certain stage of permanence. The true permanence is that it's finished product and brought it into your house or into your house. That's the formula. You want to bypass that formula. Maybe upon occasion we can find cases that are similar, but it has to reach a very high level of permanence to do that. What did you do here? All you did was gave truma. Well, what kind of permanence did you give the other 98? Okay, but it's a gray area, so Rabbi Eliezer says yes, they say no, but that's what he's trying to say. The Chamim would say no, and very likely they would also say no to Shabbos being koveh, at least if it's not a finished product. So he's siding up with the Makshan against Mar Zutra Breda Rav Nachman, saying you can't necessarily assume the Chamim would say that Shabbos would be Koveya for this. Right? Now the truth of the matter is Rav Nachman already paskined that Shabbos is Koveya, but he's saying you can't prove it in our Mishnah because very likely the Rabbanan who argue on Rebbe Eliezer over here could just as easily argue in our Mishnah and say Shabbos is not Koveya. So what is Koveya? The Dibur. We'll go back to that approach. All right. Should we try some of the Rashis in our 2 minutes here?
We've got 2 minutes to finish all the Rashis to the end of this.
Hachi Garsina. Elo Amar Rashimi Bar Ashi.
Rashi Bar Ashi says, Olam Shabbos hu dekava asnisi.
Shabbos is what was Koveya, okay? He agrees that it is Shabbos, but look what he says. When you try to remove Mar Zutra, remember the Makshim was trying to remove Mar Zutra, who was trying to help his father. When you try to remove Mar Zutra though, Mi Siyate, from his help, he was trying to help his father. So you have Mar Zutra trying to help his father, and you want to remove Mar Zutra from helping his father, and you want to make it Delo L'Sayeya Lavuha, that he shouldn't be able to help his father from our Mishnah. If you really want to remove him from helping his father from our Mishnah, this is the way you should do it. Even though Rashi says he really agrees, the truth of the matter is it is Shabbos is Koveya. Because remember, Rav Nachman paskined already. He had a Kabbalah that's really true. But that's not the issue here. The halacha is really not the issue. The issue is, can you prove it from our Mishnah? Mar Zutra said you could prove from the Mishnah to help his father, and all these people are arguing against him that no, you couldn't really help your father from this Mishnah. So he's saying you want to remove Mar Zutra from helping his father from this Mishnah. You could end up saying. So it's really like a rhetorical question. Rebbe Eliezer Ka'amres, you're talking about Rebbe Eliezer over here. Remember, he's part of the group that you're talking about. And it's Minei, it was from him, that Maisis, that you brought a Siyata. Remember, you tried to bring a Siyata from Rebbe Eliezer, and to say it has to be the Shabbos Kavak. Remember, at the top of the page, we tried to prove from Rebbe Eliezer and the whole thing about the Zaysim. You can't say it's the Dibur, so it must be the Shabbos. You tried to bring a proof from Rebbe Eliezer that Shabbos must be what's being Kaveh.
Siyata is a proof?
A help. By Siyata D'Shmaya. Help from Hashem. You wanted to bring a proof that Shabbos could be Kaveh even if without Nigmar Malachto. And I could agree with you. You could have a very good proof from Rebbe Eliezer, but you know why? Because it's all Rebbe Eliezer L'Taimei. It's only Rebbe Eliezer according to his own reasoning. And the Chachamim will argue. Okay, we'll stop here.